Listen to the following, please. So let's just very quickly look at, well, we'll look at the intranet first. And I've just reordered the things so that they're sort of more in a sensible way, a sensible order. Bivariate requirements achieved, very important file, because basically those are the 9 things you have to do from start to finish to get achieved, and then there's the merit stuff and excellence, those first 3. Understanding R, what is the correlation coefficient? Now that's obviously really important because you've got to mention that for achieved. So understanding what the correlation coefficient is, there's a little PDF file there which explains that, but R is a calculation that the spreadsheet does which generates a number from -1 to 1, and 0 being absolutely no data pattern whatsoever, no relationship, no correlation, and 1 being perfect and -1 being perfect but in the other direction. So we're talking about, that's pretty straightforward. Understanding what R squared is, that's worth a read, because R squared itself, that's the original number that the computer generates, is sort of actually not that good. Well, it's perfectly good. You guys should be quiet. And so you need to read that to get an appreciation of what R squared is. R is far more straightforward. It's about how well the dots meet the line. That's not what R squared is. R squared is different. Okay? Now, straight after those ones, T-Rex, of course, the T-Rex gorilla data is sort of simplistic because there's only 2 columns and there's only one thing you can look at doing. We've sort of been there. The McDonald's task I've put there, that's a PDF file which says go to a website, which is the maths textbook website, download the spreadsheet, which is the McDonald's spreadsheet, and it's got all the different percentages of fat and sodium and sugar and all the stuff in all the McDonald's food, or some of the McDonald's food. And basically I want you to do this first today, is to just do the task that's in the textbook. And it all tells you on the PDF file which page to go to and so on. And it's just about correlation. Okay? And so obviously that's not very hard. Now, UN data and cigarette use and lung cancer and bamboo growth are 3 data sets there. Bamboo growth, of course, that we've looked at. And if we actually have a look at bamboo growth, I go down to here. Remember, I'm using Excel, but it doesn't matter too much. The bamboo growth one, the only cunning thing about bamboo growth is that when we highlight and we use the command button, then that enables us to graph any column against any other column. Remembering that the left-hand one will always come out on the x-axis, which is called the exemplary variable, and the y-axis is always the right-hand one. Yesterday I also showed you that if you highlight the whole lot, then we can use the data sort option, which of course in the case of the rainfall was very useful. Data and sort, and we can choose to sort on column D because that's the rainfall one, and we do that. It reorders all of our data, and now we're in a position to basically use the data up to the point where we want without having to graph the whole lot. The question was also asked this morning, is it worthwhile ordering your data always? And the short answer is no. You only order it if you're going to leave some out, okay? Because whether it's ordered or unordered, the computer is going to generate the same graph, so therefore it makes no difference. Now if you have a look under here, this is what the UN data looks like. UN data, a bunch of countries from Africa, America, or the Americas, Asia, etc. There's about 45 of them. And there's data here, ratio of girls to boys in high school, sanitation percentage with access. That means the percentage people obviously who've got access to probably running water or toilets or something. Percentage of HIV people, undernourished percentage, etc., etc., etc. And if that data was presented to you, you might be asked to do an investigation of it. So there's actually a heap of possibilities there. And often it's the choice that makes it worse. If you've got hardly any options, like with bamboo, then you do temperature versus growth and you do rainfall versus growth and you sort of leave it at that. Whereas this one here, we could say, well, maybe there's a relationship between sanitation and fertility. Wouldn't make, not out of the question. So you might want to have a check at that column versus this, or you might want to look at percentage with internet access versus GDP. Maybe higher GDP countries are going to have more internet access because they're more developed and so on and so on. So in this situation, you've got a heap more options, and I want you to do an analysis of this, but not quite yet. Okay, this is sort of the next one. So basically, in summary here, we have got the requirements. We need to do a couple of things there. We need to know what R squared actually means, so look that up by looking at this file. I want you to do the McDonald's task. Okay, I want you to be happy with the bamboo growth task in that you're able to sort the data and do a graph which is a subset of the whole lot. Okay, and once you've done all of those, the McDonald's task is about correlation and what R is. That's pretty easy. Then grab the UN data and come up with something from it. I'm just going to leave it completely to you. You investigate it and you present me with an achieved or a merit sort of project, so to speak. Now what I mean by project is at achieve level, you just have to come up with one correlation and say, here's my correlation, fertility versus GDP. The correlation is 0.9. It's all very linear and marvelous. Achieved. Okay, in other words, you do the achieve things. If you want to do it better than that, you might want to look at something else that affects GDP. Okay, if that in fact is what you're looking up. So the merit one is basically saying, okay, you found one thing that correlates, find something else that does it as well. That sort of adds to your investigation. That's what merit is. And as I say, next week I'll talk to you more about excellence. But if you can do that based on the UN data, then you're looking at basically a merit response. George?
Is that at the end of the day we're doing two relationships in the UN data?
Yeah, merit requires a minimum of two relationships where you investigate two things that correlate to the same one thing. Okay. In other words, if you choose GDP, you might go, well, look, fertility and GDP correlate, but also one of the other ones, okay, percentage sanitation or something and GDP. And because you've done both and you do a comparison between the two, that makes it merit, okay, which is the difference. Yep.